Good evening and welcome to the Vault. I hope everybody's holidays are going well and hopefully things are looking good and you've got plenty of presents and getting ready for New Year's Eve tomorrow night. Tonight's show, we are going to be looking at the best indie game publishers that are out there and what they offer and how they got to where they are and where they're going. In addition to that, we've got a little bit of New Year's fun. We're going to look at the top 5 picks for me for the last year and maybe look at a few things that are coming ahead in the solo RPG realm. So welcome and glad you could make it tonight. It is a little bit better this time. I've got some things lined out finally, along with my microphone and camera and setup. So I know that's kind of inside baseball stuff, but it's good to finally get some things worked out on the stream. So hopefully we can make some progress, bring some new friends into the show and have a good time together, right? So let's go ahead and take a look. We're gonna jump into the top 5 first. I want to discuss that and let you guys know how I feel about that. So let's see. Okay, so like I said, these are in, really no particular order, but I just want to kind of go over some of the things that I found interesting this year that I specifically picked up and am looking forward to either continue playing or jump into, and since some of them I haven't done yet. So anyway, let's take a look first. We're looking at Guards of Trader Toll, and this is from Gray for Now Games. This is not an RPG. It is a skirmish. It is a skirmish combat game with narrative elements, right? So this is something that is new this year, and they've already released an expansion for it. But I picked this up early in the year and have worked on. I've got some models built and I've got some painted, but I do not have them completely ready to go yet. This game is very interesting. You play as guards in a fantasy city, and while it's not exactly labeled as Warhammer fantasy roleplay, it is very much modeled on that game world. So you can tell from the aesthetics of some of the terrain and the characters and how they all interact. But the basic flow of the game is you and your friends play as different factions of guards within a large city in the medieval world. And the gameplay loop is you investigate things that are going on, suspicious villagers, suspicious townsfolk, and other random events that come up, and you end up trying to stop crimes or catch the perps, and you end up competing with the other guard factions to at the end of the game to see who was able to keep peace the best, right? So going down here, this was a starter set, right? So you get the rule book here along with several tokens and a whole lot of cards to go with it. So the dice are special dice, but they come with the set. And so you use the special dice along with regular D6s. You have several token cards that you can punch, and then the cards. Now the cards are a way to recruit your characters, right? So they have like this one you see in the picture for the guard captain, and then there are NPC cards for the different towns and villagers that you might seek, and it covers what their behavior is. Shows you how they react to your presence and what they do. And then there's an event deck as well, right? So you can see from the models here, it is a very Warhammer-esque type aesthetic that you can see. And, the same thing for the villagers as well. But it's got a really great aesthetic to it. The gameplay seems very interesting. I really can't wait to get this onto the table and see how it actually plays out. So, and then you can see that they've got there's several expansions here, like the Busy Streets expansion, which adds dwarves to the guards list, as well as a host of new villagers and new event cards and everything else. So it's pretty cool. So that's number 5, and I'm going to go up in order to my favorite, right? So that was Guards of Traitor's Toll from Grey for Now Games. Check it out if seems interesting to you. Number 4 for me was from Cubicle 7 for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. My group has played this game extensively over the last several years. In fact, we even completed the Enemy Within campaign, which took a couple of years to finish. But this book here is called Death Steps and Light Fingers, and it is an expansion specifically for rogue type characters and ranger type characters. And this was a much needed expansion for the game. I am really happy with the work that Cubicle 7 did on this to expand the options available to these two types of characters. You know, for the rogues, you have a complete expansion area for the god Renaud. There are several career types that are specific to that god, and as well as a lot of downtime options and character options as to modify some of the existing careers and add some new careers and some equipment along with it. And on the ranger side, there's a whole section for travel and journeying rules and ways to be able to expand the way that I say rangers, but more woodland type characters might interact with the game world. In addition to that, there's also an expansion for the gods Tal and Rhea in the book, which are the nature-focused gods, which makes sense given the subject material. But this is an area that really needed some help, in my opinion, and they gave it to it. I would love they did an expansion for the warrior classes with the Up in Arms book. And I'm glad to see this one. And of course, they've had the Winds of Magic for Magic users. I'm still looking for something from Moore, the god Moore, the god of the dead in the Warhammer universe. But we haven't got that yet. But hopefully that'll be coming soon, right? So, number 3, we've talked about this on the first episode. The Coriolis the Great Dark from Free League. I'm really excited to try this at some point. We did the review. It looks great to me. The production values are amazing, and I won't go over it in too much detail again, but just to say that it's on my radar to get on the table, hopefully within 2026. Hey, Kathy, I see you commented there. Thanks for joining. Okay, number 2. From Cubicle 7 also, we've got the Imperium Maledictum Inquisitor's Player Guide. Now, this is one of 2 books that came out simultaneously for the Inquisition expansion, the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide. These books are a pair that expands the Imperial Maledictum experience into the area of the Inquisition, where your characters play a retinue or hirelings, or however you want to phrase it, for an Inquisitor character. And it gives a greatly needed expansion and some specificity to the setting that was a bit left out in the core book. So this gives a framework to play a campaign within that dynamic of the Inquisition, and it's really well done. We might want to jump in and do a review of that sometime. I'm very pleased with what they released there, and it's been a good read, and I think it would be something worth highlighting in the future. And number 1 for me, Blades in the Dark Deep Cuts. So Blades in the Dark is some people call it narrative, but I would say it's kind of in between the narrative and the crunchier type games. I love Blades in the Dark. It's an amazing game that sees your characters play scoundrels and thieves in a steampunk type setting. And Deep Cuts is a Kickstarter that came along after the main Blades in the Dark game. This is an expansion and a revision in a way of some of the core rules of the original version. Now, this particular one, Deep Cuts, it adds a lot of extra campaign and setting information into the game that we have not seen before, and it's very interesting. So we're talking about new factions. We're talking about an extension to the timeline in a way, not a lot, but just a little. But it's a great expansion. So you've got two parts to it. The first is the setting information, and then the second is an extension to the game mechanics with a very extensive overhaul to the action system, in which streamlines it to a great degree and kind of brings some of the mechanics together to where they work more cohesively as a system rather than kind of several different elements that each work independently. So, if you're not familiar with Blades in the Dark, it is loosely based on the Powered by the Apocalypse system, but it's pretty heavily modified, and so there's a lot more detail, in my opinion, than traditional Powered by the Apocalypse games as far as mechanics go, and that's a good thing to me. Sometime I would like to really go into the spectrum that exists between narrative games and crunchier type games as far as mechanics go, because that to me is a very interesting topic that goes into the theory of games and what people want to get out of a game, and how they go about describing the world around them, right? So anyway, Deep Cuts is something to look for if you're into that kind of thing. If you're going to get Blades in the Dark, get Deep Cuts, because it really is a great pairing to the original game and needed, in my opinion. I think that the PDF is available to everyone now. The Kickstarter, I just got my pledge here in the last month, and for the physical books, but I think the PDFs are for sale now. Let's see. Yeah, so that was my top 5, and yeah, so my top 5 of the year. Of course, there's a lot of things I picked up that didn't make the list that were still good expansions, good games, but that's the pick for me. I would love to hear from you what yours was. If you are watching this later and want to comment and let us all know what was in your top, I would love to hear it and talk about it. So let's jump over to a couple of news items, and we'll see what's happening out there. Let's see here. Let me switch it over. Specifically, what I wanted to talk about in the news is that InWorld they have their poll up for most anticipated game of 2026. And let's see. I'm not sure how long this is up for, but it is still available right now. Let me refresh this and see if they've posted any. No, but the poll is still up, and you can go through the list and let them know what you're looking forward to in 2026. And there's a lot of these that I don't recognize at all, but some of these are worth noting. going through the list here, I can see first is Broken Empires, which is a Kickstarter that I backed, which is a non-level based skill system game with a custom setting. And it's a completely custom game system and this was Kickstarted last year, I believe, and they're about to release the beta here pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to that. It is a crunchier type rule set, and I'll certainly bring it to your attention, guys, whenever I get it, and we can talk about it more. Let's see, Deathbringer. That's another one. This is from Professor DM. If you're familiar with his channel, and Deathbringer is his own custom game based on the Shadow Dark rule set, which is a OSR derived game. And it's supposed to be quick playing. It's supposed to be pretty brutal, but it is something that I'm looking forward to checking out. There's not much information about it right now, but I'm sure that'll change. Let's see, what else do we have here? Heroes of Might and Magic coming from Modifius. That's an interesting one. I did not know this was coming, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Horus Heresy from Cubicle 7. Now, I don't know which rule set they're going to use with that, if they're going to have something completely new, or if they're going to do something in using Imperium Maledictum. Be curious to see. Let's see, what else do we have here that got my attention? The Black Company, that's one. So I'm a huge fan of Glenn Cook's series of novels of The Black Company. There was a version there was an adaptation of The Black Company to a role-playing game back when 3E launched for Dungeons and Dragons. So we're looking at 20 years ago, something like that. So it was a D20 version. So we'll see what they do this time. Hopefully it's something good and worthy of the Black Company label. I would love to see a great game come along in that vein. Twilight Sword, we took a look at that Kickstarter. That's the one that's loosely Zelda Final Fantasy. And then lastly, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 5th edition. That is also something I'm looking forward to. They're calling it 5th edition, but it's really more of a 4.5. I think it's revised, cleaned up a little bit from the 4th edition. They specifically said that the rules will be fully compatible with all the content that's been produced from 4th edition. So it can't be wildly different, right? So yeah, that's the list that's out there now for the in-world most anticipated of 2026. So if you want to jump over there and vote for them, I think you can vote for up to 3 of those. Yep, there, vote for 3. So pick the ones you like, and let's see what the others are looking at. Let's see here. Yeah, so the main topic of this stream was the indie publishers and what's out there, right? So this is something that I wanted to highlight because as a fan of everything not D&D, it's nice to see that there has formed some fairly strong competition out there that's starting to get a lot of traction. And these companies have used licensing, and they've used tools like licensing, and at the beginning they did some crowdfunding, but most of them have kind of graduated past that at this point. But they're really stable companies that are producing a lot of great games right now. And I really wanted to spend some time going over and talking about some of those and bring it to people's attention. I don't think that they get enough exposure in the RPG world. I mean, we're just inundated constantly with D&D live play, actual plays, and D&D this and D&D merch and everything else. And it's just something that I think it's time to change that and show everybody out there what's available and the good things that you can play that are not you know bog standard D&D. Okay, jumping over to look at those sites up. Stage, there we go. Okay, so what's the first one we're looking at here? So we're looking at Modifius Entertainment. So you've probably seen some of these now in some of my news segments. Modifius is a company that's been around for several years at this point. I think I first came across them in, I think, like the 2017 timeframe at Gen Con. They've really made a name for themselves with license, right? And specifically their 2D20 engine for RPGs. This is, I think I've mentioned it before, but for me, it's a bit of a mixed bag on that. I do like some parts of it, and I like how they adapt the engine to specific settings and make it their own. But they're really set on using meta currency. And while I'm not opposed to that from a player point of view, they like to put meta currency for the use of game masters, right? And I can't get behind that. I mean, as a game master, if I want something to happen, I'm going to make it happen, right? I don't need meta currency to tell me I can do it. So, that's how I feel about it. Everybody's going to feel a little bit different, but that's me. But all in all, like I said, it is a fun system to use, and a lot of people have a good time with it. So, and I've played it before myself and ran it. So, it's not all bad. But Modifius, they got their start with license deals, and you can see here, I mean, just looking at the list of some of their RPGs, they started, it's not listed here, but they started with Conan, the Hyborian Age. And that was really something that helped launch them. And that was the one that I played. It was a great game. And then also Star Trek Adventures followed right after that. Star Trek is a very solid RPG using the 2D20 system, and they just released, I think last year, a new edition of that, the second edition of Star Trek Adventures, which addressed a large problem with the layout of their book. It was really hard to find rules sometimes, and the way that it was paced was disjointed in the rule book, and they went back and corrected that and made it more in line with a lot of the things that they've released since then. And it's been expanded hugely since the initial release, with a lot of supplements, a lot of settings, playing in different time periods and so forth. But they've also, since then, they have continued to expand and expand, with Infinity. Now they've got Homeworld coming, based on the PC game Homeworld. We looked at Cohorts Cthulhu, which is a unique setting, all of their own. And Fallout, they picked up the Fallout license, and along with Dune as well. But Fallout, they have expanded to where they're doing it. They have a miniature skirmish game along with the role-playing game. I haven't played it or looked at it myself, but it looked pretty interesting. So, that's out of their 2D20 system. But they also sell a large number of non-2D20 systems as well that you'll see. Some of them are from other publishers, but yeah, they've got a big offering. And then specifically on the war game side as well, they've got a lot of skirmish games that they've come out with around that topic. So like I said, the Fallout, they've got an Elder Scrolls, And then they've got all the 5 leagues and 5 parsecs solo games as well. And they're also launching a tabletop mech warrior type game called Hard War that I did back on Kickstarter. That looks really good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that when it comes. But yeah, they continue to release and expand not just licensed IP, but their own in-house stuff, as well as a lot of miniature products. And they're, and it's not just the actual physical miniatures; they sell the STLs as well. So, I would look at Modifius if any of that stuff looks good to you, and see if there's something there that may catch your interest or those of your players. Next is a big one, Free League. So Free League to me is probably one of the top 2 premier non-D&D RPG publishers out there. These guys have really been knocking it out of the park with a lot of games for several years now, and they're just firing on all cylinders. These guys, now they got their start with their Forbidden Lands RPG. They have their own system as well. It's called the Year Zero engine, and it's the one that powers the Coriolis that we reviewed in our first episode. And so the Year Zero engine is a base system that they adapt pretty heavily for each one of their settings, so that it feels unique. But they started with Forbidden Lands, and it immediately won several Ennies, several Ennie awards at Gen Con, and got a lot of attention, made a lot of sales, and kind of catapulted them into the limelight. And then they just started hitting bangers after that. So looking at their page for their games, they've picked up Alien franchise. That was such a hit that they just released a new revision of the rules called the Evolved Edition. It also uses Year Zero engine, but it's good. Dragonbane has been a big hit. Dragonbane is a game that it's kind of like the Swedish Dungeons and Dragons. It's been around for a very long time, and Free League kind of picked it up and ran with it. By the way, Free League is a Swedish company, and they're that's kind of the tie-in there. Mutant Year Zero, that was another one. What was the favorite thing that I played from these guys? Oh gosh. Well, okay, so for me that's easy. It's One Ring. They picked up the One Ring license from Cubicle 7, and this game is amazing. So it's their adaptation of their this is not Year Zero rules. It is an adaptation of the original Cubicle 7 rule set that they refined pretty heavily whenever they took it over and kickstarted it. But this game system for Lord of the Rings is probably the closest that I have experienced to be able to bring out the feel and the tone of Middle Earth, right? And the way that characters are made, and in the theme of the characters, the power levels, the travel rules for journeying through Middle Earth, and also the adventure locations for the different expansions that they've released. All of them evoke the setting in a way that no other game has, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's probably my pick out of them. But you can see the list here. Morkborg has become huge. That's one of theirs. Twilight 2000. That's something I'm playing right now. I think it's the 4th edition of that game, and is a Year Zero engine game. What else here? Pirate Borg. That's a flavor of Morkborg that's big. Vaesen, that's another one. So Vaesen, that game, it is It's the Swedish Call of Cthulhu. So it is an investigation of eldritch otherworldly powers, right? And that's kind of the theme of that game. So they call it Nordic horror role playing. I have not played it myself. I'm not sure exactly how that plays out, but anyway, that's what has got Free League to the state that they are in right now, is picking it, is one very much like Modifius and some of the others we're going to talk about a little bit. They have mixed in picking up licenses along with releasing their own in-house content, and it's been successful for them. And I can't speak enough of how much I appreciate what Free League has brought into the indie RPG industry. Many of these games, I have not played, but the ones that I have are rock solid. I mean, they're great games. So where is Free League going? Now, that one I am not too sure. I have not heard about anything that they are going to be releasing coming up other than expansions to the existing game lines that they have. I do know that the One Ring is being expanded. Aliens is coming along with more things in the works. What I would love to see is a return to Forbidden Lands. If they could come back to that, which is their original in-house setting for fantasy role play, I would love to see them come back and hit that with some new content. Okay, I won't spend a lot of time on this one. This is Chaosium. So, and the reason why is because these guys have been around for a very long time, and they've continued to be a solid player in the indie RPG scene through decades at this point. And why? Because of this right here, Call of Cthulhu. These are the guys that were original owners of that game and came out with it, like I said, decades ago, all the way back to the point where I was in high school, right? So, and then also they've got RuneQuest, which is their fantasy setting. All of their games, with the exception of a couple, use their basic role-playing system, which is a percentile-based skill system, non-leveled skill system. And, there's not much I can say more about Call of Cthulhu that you probably haven't heard elsewhere. It's a great game, very evocative setting. RuneQuest is very crunchy, and it's a very unique system. It's an acquired taste, I think. I've got several of the books, and they're very interesting, but I haven't dived into it yet. And then lastly here, I wanted to bring up is Pendragon. So Pendragon is their Arthurian setting, and that Pendragon's been around forever. It's kind of a niche game, but it is evolved over the years, and they just over the last year finished releasing their latest edition of it, which is a really good and concise cleanup of the system, and I'm looking forward to getting that on the table as well. Let's jump over about Cubicle 7 and talk about these guys. So I would say that they are probably contending with Free League to be one of the top, in my opinion, that's out there. Cubicle 7 is the last one on my list. These guys got their start with the One Ring. They held the license to that originally, and they really, it was a very popular game. The Middle Earth role play license was, I think, was with ICE way back in the day, and you had the I can't remember, Middle Earth MERP, Middle Earth role playing. That's what it was, and that was under the ICE system, and I didn't play that. Heard some good things about it, but also it was pretty in depth and like almost over crunchy. But they ended up releasing Cubicle 7, picked up the license, released their own version of the One Ring. It was good. It was good. But then I'm not sure why they lost it to Free League, but I think Free League has even leveled it up from there. Right. So that's kind of what got Cubicle 7 on the map. And then they picked up Warhammer. So they picked up the Warhammer license several years back and released Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition. And my group has played that game a lot, extensively. And it's been a very solid addition to the Warhammer lineage, the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay lineage, which itself has been around since the mid 80s. And they have spent a lot of time on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and expanded it greatly. And like I said, they're coming out with the 5th edition this next year. And then, they took over the 40K side of it from Fantasy Flight Games, who had the system before them. So they had Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, and several other in the line of Warhammer 40,000. And so now they have taken the Wrath and Glory rules and brought it in-house, and then they have created Imperium Maledictum. Now, it's a little confusing because you've got 2 role-playing games for Warhammer 40,000, and also for fantasy as well, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But Wrath and Glory is a little bit looser system that kind of allows you to play whatever you want. Imperium Maledictum, however, is where it's at. That's a percentile skill-based system that is a direct successor to the Fantasy Flight Games versions that we saw back in the Dark Heresy Rogue Trader days. So yeah, Imperium Maledictum, and like I said, they've come out with their new expansion for that, for the Playing Inquisitors and so forth. And then they've also got Doctor Who, which apparently is pretty popular. There's been a lot of news on their website about Doctor Who. And then, like I said, they've just released a second Warhammer Fantasy RPG called Warhammer the Old World. Now, I can't say how this makes any sense to me. They have a very successful line in fantasy roleplay. Warhammer the Old World is a completely different rule set with a dice pool system. And I just don't, it's just not making sense to me what led them to go in this direction. I just don't know. But I picked it up. I've looked at it, glanced over it. It looks okay. I just don't know why you'd have two in the same realm. So we'll see where they go with it. I don't know if that's going to last very long, given that they've decided to go back and release a new edition for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but we'll see what they do. And then here recently, they just came out with this Laundry. I do not know. So it looks like award-winning RPG of cosmic horror, tech-driven magic, and occult spycraft returns, based on the Laundry Files by Charles Stross. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like it's popular amongst the kids these days, so to speak. So we'll see what they do with that. I don't think that's much my bag, but if it's successful, then good for Cubicle 7. These guys are, I would say that they hold my respect greater than any of the rest. So, and here's why I say that. A lot of game companies will start out on Kickstarter, and they'll fund their first versions of their games and so forth, which is great. Kickstarter is a wonderful tool for new creators to get their creative ideas out there in the public, to get it produced and see their dreams realized, right? But the problem that I've seen is that you have established companies that will continue to use Kickstarters to essentially act as their pre-order system. And I've got a big problem with that, because what they do is they are using their customers as their bank. Rather than, if they have a strong idea and they feel strongly about it, rather than them investing their own money and taking their own risk to launch a game or a supplement or what have you, they go to Kickstarter and they use their customers as the bank to fund their project. I'm not cool with that, not from these established companies. And Cubicle 7 is one that has got my respect because they don't do it. They have kickstarted some original versions of some of their games, but then they quickly set that aside, and from all the follow-on supplements, editions, and so forth, they fund themselves and they do their own pre-orders, and they release the game on their own dime, right? So not everybody does that, so hats off to Cubicle 7 for doing that and treating their customers with respect by not draining them of money, right? So anyway, that's I would say that's probably the list that I wanted to discuss. I'd love to know what you think. Did you agree with this list? Do you think what else should be on here that's not? Of course, this is not exhaustive. There's a lot of good indie publishers out there, and even some that I like that just didn't make the list. But that's who I wanted to talk about today, and who I thought deserved highlighting. But like I said, if you feel strongly about somebody else, put it in the comments. We can always look at them in the future and see what they have to offer. But anyway, that's all I have for tonight. And hope you enjoyed the look at my top 5 from 2025, and hope you enjoyed the deep dive on some of the indie publishers that I highlighted, and hope you're enjoying the content. If you did like the content, I would urge you to subscribe and like the live stream. If you didn't, then I certainly appreciate the time that you spent watching, and maybe I'll catch you in the next one. Anyway, thanks. Good night.